Hello there, everybody. I'm Mr. Game Pie.
And I was caught mid-rant by the end of a part.
Yes, and... Oh, wait, I don't have any water plants. Let's, no winter melons. I'll need this. It'll be okay, Austin. But, yeah, go back into what you were talking about. Special zombie combinations in the second game.
Right, so that's just one of the good things about the endless mode, is that it's all randomly generated. But what's really interesting about that is that since every world has a special gargantuar, specifically designed for that given world, the gargantuar is programmed like any other zombie. It shows up at random. Which means that if you constantly exit and re-enter the endless mode, you can trick out the RNG and never have to fight against a gargantuar. Ever. That was about it. That's all.
I mean, you were also talking about specific zombie combinations that were very interesting.
Right. Umbrellas and Crystal Skull zombies are pretty cool because the umbrellas block anything overhead, so that's any and all IKEA berries and whatever it is. Yeah, anything catapult related. Those are great. I said IKEA wrong, but whatever. It's not a Kai, but it's not IKEA. I'm too tired to think of the actual name, even though I have the game right in front of me. Whatever.
Okay.
But there's also, let's see, hang on, I'll think of them. There's a lot of weird combinations that come from the Neon Mixtor stage, just because it's got the arcade machine zombies, which push out arcade machines. That's actually one thing that's really interesting, is that normally the music is very clearly and deliberately set up to change based on what zombies are available. So the rocking zombies will only show up when the rock music is playing. The disco zombies on roller skates will only show up when the disco music plays, etc. That doesn't happen in Endless Mode. In Endless Mode, it's just this wave of enemies that also occasionally get extra powers based on whatever song starts playing. That is extremely nerve-wracking because you don't know when the music is going to switch, you don't know what it's going to switch to, and you don't know what new terror is going to hit you. So that kind of stuff doesn't happen in premeditated levels, but always happens in randomized levels, and I really like that. The only problem with that is that if you are patient enough, you can always trick out the RNG so that you never have to fight against the zombies you don't want to fight against. Because the only way they figure it out is basically, alright, well, you have these plants at your disposal, so this is what we are allowed to send out at you each round. And that's it.
Yes.
That said, the Endless Mode in general has a really cool gimmick where, every round, you start out with just a pea shooter, a sunflower, and a walnut. And with every new round, you get a new plant that you get to pick from a list of 3. And it's only 3 plants. So, let's say one round you get to pick between a bloomerang, a melon pult, and a cabbage pult. You go for the melon pult, that means you don't get the other 2, and get to survive with those 4 plants for the next round. And if you can do that, you get a new plant. Eventually you build up enough of a stock that you just pick plants at random, and then occasionally pick power-ups and coins and lawnmowers and stuff like that. But it feels far more interesting as an endless mode than, say, survival does. Although I wish there was a survival mode in the second game as well, because I kind of liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's a good time.
It is. It's actually really fun. I believe the only endless mode there is on the phone version is Endless Survival, which is a bit weird because you'd think the endless mode would just be endless regular zombies mode, like it is in this version. Speaking of which, are you going to show that off at any point?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to show off any of the extra modes or not.
Right, because this is the extra mode you built this LP for, so that makes sense.
Basically.
And now it's turned into a podcast about the second game.
Yeah.
Oops.
Well, I mean, there's only so much that you can talk about in this game.
Oh,
really.
Look at those zombies stepping forward. Have we talked about modular animation yet?
Not really. I mean, you brought up the fact you really like modular animation, but you haven't exactly described what it is, or why you like it, or anything.
Would you like to do the honors, or would you like me to?
I don't know what modular animation is.
Oh! Okay, well that works then. Alright, so, best way I could probably describe this is that 2D animation in general has been around since the very beginning. Atari games had 2D animation. Pac-Man and Space Invaders were 2D animated games. The idea is that it's much easier to draw a cartoon.
Oh, by the way, this guy. This guy right here, he swims underneath the water. So normal pea shooters will shoot right above him. But that's why I brought in catapults for this stage, melon pults specifically. Because they can shoot directly on top of them.
I love
These
that.
zombies are dead. They have less health than normal zombies, I believe. But
they have just as much health as normal zombies.
Oh, really? I thought they always had less health because normally the only way that you can shoot them is if they come up to eat a plant.
Oh, it might actually be half, looking at the fact that you're taking them down in 2 melons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind.
But yeah, normally the only real way to defeat them is whenever they come up to a plant, they'll start eating it. And so they'll die whenever they're being shot while they're trying to eat. So the idea normally is to set up something like a walnut in the water so that they'll come up, start eating that, and then get shot by whatever pea shooter that you're using.
Mm-hmm.
But here, because I have melon pults, they can't do anything.
Right.
They're just dead. And now I'm going to start saying out marigolds because, you know, why not?
Not bad.
Anyway, back to what you were saying about modular animation.
Modular animation. Okay, so the first thing that video game developers started doing was very specifically sprite-based animation. The idea that you create a separate model for every position your character could be in. This is practical for older games because, first of all, everything was cartridge-based, so you could load up a separate model for every single position your character could be in, and it would make sense, and it was also very easy for the game to load up just a collection of dots on a page. I mean, any game that uses sprite-based animation still works. If you've ever seen Wario Land Shake Dimension, or Wario Land Shake It, as we call it stateside, which is a really dumb name, by the way.
Yeah.
Wario Land Shake It has some of my favorite sprite-based animation because every single one of his 1,500 or something like that sprites is very meticulously hand-drawn and complex to the point where you can't tell it's a sprite anymore. But it is. It's a single drawn image loaded up to represent a frame in his motion. That's sprite animation. And sprite animation looks really good in the sense that it takes advantage of how cartoons have one image that flows into the next. However, that's not always the only way that you can animate something. Obviously, nowadays we work off of 3D animation, which makes use of a method called tweening, or keyframing. Yes. Which is when you set up, here's point A, here's point B, and here's what limb 1 does to get from point A to point B. And then you just put a bunch of points and limbs and skeletal structures together on a 3D model and tell the game what everything should do at what times, and that's just how 3D animation works in general. However, somewhere along
we destroyed that level.
Nice. And somewhere along the line, and I can't for the life of me tell you when, somebody came up with the amazing idea of trying keyframe animation with a 2D game. This is not something new to animation. Flash animation, in particular, has always used keyframes. If you ever look at a show like My Little Pony, for example.
I'm doing this.
Ooh. Good, good. I'm glad we're finally getting to show this off now.
I'm doing this.
We're
doing it. We're doing it, Austin.
If you ever look at a Flash animated show like My Little Pony or that new The Lion Guide that's coming out, which looks questionable, you can see tweening animation done in Flash, where basically each model is just a puppet that stretches and squashes based on keyframes, and every limb is animated individually. That's technically modular animation because the limbs are separate pieces in a skeleton, but it's all in 2D kind of sprite-based cartoon form at the same time. It's a nice balance. So, Plants vs. Zombies, I believe, is one of the first games, widespread, well-known games, anyway, to use modular animation. If you take a look at the zombies, the way that they're animated is that their head is one picture, basically. Their arms are disconnected, but sort of attached at the shoulder. Their body is one, their legs are two different. So they have 2 legs, a body, 2 arms, and a head, and they all move independently of one another, but they're all basically attached to hinges, so that their head can tilt, their arms can sway, and bend at the elbow, and things like that. That's modular animation because it's still 2D images, but they're all kind of latched onto one another and layered on top of one another, so that zombies in motion look like they're a little bit... They look like they're sprite animated, but at the same time you don't have to draw in individual sprites for everything.
Yes.
In the case of, for example, the newspaper zombie, his glasses are separate from his body, from his head, etc. And I believe a lot of zombies also have independent eyes of their heads. Things like that. This is a lot of stuff that doesn't really, it's not really anything that's noteworthy outside of the fact that it's a very...
pretty much the first, this is pretty much the first time to happen in gaming.
Yeah, well, not exactly the first time, but definitely one of the first times that a lot of people saw it. And I think a lot of people just automatically thought that this kind of stuff was all sprite-based, and they were just cheap sprites because they reused animation a lot of the time. But what makes this so cool is that essentially they just drew one arm sprite, or one forearm sprite and one upper arm sprite, and attach them together and create hundreds upon hundreds of frames of animation for unique zombies that they don't have to constantly keep loading up new images for. I find this kind of stuff really fascinating because, to me, programming and how things are built from the ground up to become an immersive experience are all just part of the gaming creation to me. So I really like this stuff. If you want to see a game that handles early modular animation perfectly, then I would recommend looking up Muramasa the Demon Blade, which is a very, very adorable, very, very Japanese game where your characters and every single enemy in the game is all modularly animated. It gets a bit weird with some of the larger enemies too, because then you get to see a lot of layering on top of modular animation, where a character's muscles can contract, and you can watch as this giant Oni demon thing guarding the gates to hell or whatever. I don't even remember the story of that game. But
Who cares? It has modular animation.
Yeah, basically, as he flexes his muscles, different layers fade in and out on top of modularly layered pieces of a 2D model. It's very, very interesting to look at. Just to watch something like that in motion is almost mesmerizing, to the point where you don't want to play the game anymore, you just want to watch the really cool animation.
Also, did you see that Buckethead? He got wrecked.
Yeah, no, wow. Puff shrooms and snow peas. That's actually a really, really good combination. I'm glad you got this out.
Yeah. Honestly, I was a little bit nervous at first. Oh, that's actually kind of bad. I'll just set this out here and the puff shroom will kill him super fast. Yeah, he's dead. He's really dead. But yeah, I was a little bit nervous at first because I didn't have any kind of plant that would, like, I don't know how to say this. I didn't have anything like the squash or the potato mine for early game.
Right.
He didn't give me anything like that, so I had to set out the snow peas right away. Also, here's why I have 2 garlic. This guy right here. That's the guy. That's him. He's the reason. He's the reason my problems exist, Austin.
See, I tend to stick out a pumpkin at that point because it has more or less the same effect, but I don't know. Anyway, go on.
Well, I didn't have enough room for pumpkins, so...
Right.
Yeah. But, yeah, basically the early game was really tough for me because I didn't have anything for early game, really. The cheapest thing that I could set out that would actually stay out there was a snow pea, and that's 175. That's intense. Trying to build up 175 up on the spot.
Yeah. I remember when I played this game early on, I dropped use of the pea shooter almost immediately and just stuck to repeaters, which was murder early game because it's impossible to build up 200 sun for every row, especially when there's 6 rows.
That's why you have things like, you know, the potato mine and the squash.
Right,
Of course, that said, whenever you're talking about having 6 rows, that's only relevant for some of the rows. Because, I mean, early on, you're not going to get water zombies.
Right.
So, for the first couple zombies, you're only having to deal with 4 rows.
Mm-hmm.
It's only until, not quite mid-game, but getting close to there, they'll have to deal with all 6 rows at once.
It's usually around halfway to the first flag, if I remember right.
Yeah. I could set out some marigolds now. I can do that. That'd be a cool thing to do. Wouldn't you agree, Austin?
Yes, I would.
That would be the coolest thing to do, actually. Yeah.
Oh, right. That's the whole reason why I keep bringing it up. The second game does animation a lot better than this game, to the point where you can barely tell it's modular anymore. That was the big point I was getting at with the whole rant about modular animation, is that the second game layers that a lot better. If you want to see a game that does modular animation really well, though, look up the new Shantae game, Half Genie Hero.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, it is some of the most gorgeous animation I've ever seen, and it is entirely modular. Like, the environments, every piece of the environment is part of a modular animation. It's absurd. It's like a Sonic game where every single part of the environment is alive, and I can't believe how great something like that is set up.
That's not what I wanted to do at all.
Also, Shantae is adorable.
Or not. That's going to kill him very fast.
Ooh, wow.
There we go. Yeah, I'm just glad that the diver zombie is like, he got up to the snow pea, but then the snow pea freezes him so that he eats slower, and then the gloom shroom right here was just totally taking him out. There was no chance for him to survive.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a good thing that happened because I misplaced the lily pad.
Right, right.
That's bad. It's really bad. we're talking super bad here.
At this point, nothing can stop you anyway, so I wouldn't be too worried.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we have 4 magnet shrooms, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
We have, snow peas are very good because they slow down people. All we would need now is, like, spike rock to seal the deal, pretty much.
Ice seems really overpowered in this game in general. And in the next game, they didn't really do anything about it, but anything that does consistent damage over time, like as in, like, not like a pea shooter, which stops at layers, but like anything that can go through layers, so a laser beam, or in this game, anything involving the fume shrooms or anything like that, and then obviously the splash damage stuff like the melon pulse, and of course spikeweed. Anything like that combined with Frozen means you get double the attack power just by changing the status effect on the zombie. That doesn't change for the sequel, which just means that freezing anything is the most overpowered thing in the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is also
even Gargantuars.
Yes, yes. Oh, frozen Gargantuars. There is no other way to deal with them. This is why I really liked the ice area, in particular in PvZ 2, because that particular level required you to not use, or at least not rely on, freezing enemies. Because first of all, you couldn't freeze them in their place because they're all wearing parkas. So, or at least some kind of skin from some kind of animal, so they're kept super warm, which means that you can't freeze them in place. They move faster when frozen than in any other zone. But more accurately and more importantly is that if plants keep getting frozen, then you need to use fire elemental plants. And if you keep using fire elemental plants, then you can't use something like a winter melon because it'll keep thawing out, and there's no point in using a winter melon at that point.
Now that's that brings me to one plant in Plants vs. Zombies 2 in particular. It seems very powerful. It costs 0 sun. Mm-hmm. You set it down, and it's kind of like the potato mine, except it doesn't need to arm, and it freezes a zombie in place.
Yeah,
the ice cabbage or something.
Iceberg lettuce.
Iceberg lettuce, yes.
Iceberg lettuce is one of the best early on plants. It takes forever to charge, so it's essentially a non-lethal potato mine.
But it costs 0 sun, it doesn't need to arm.
The most useful thing to do with it, surprisingly, is to just keep it in one of the further back rows, actually.
And then use plant food on it?
And use plant food to essentially accomplish the same thing that the
ice shroom.
The ice shroom does in this game. It's a screen nuke that freezes everything on screen for about as long. And that is probably the most useful thing in the game. One of the pro strats, as it were, is to keep an iceberg lettuce close. Before a zombie activates it, use plant food on it to freeze everything, and then it'll also freeze that zombie when the zombie hits it. So there's a lot of little things to the strategy like that. Iceberg lettuce is one of the best early on plants because it is free, and it is very useful like that. But of course, being also zero sun, it is non-lethal, which is a small problem.
So, yeah, we're basically done with this level. No, wait, we're not. We still got another flag to go. Gee whiz!
Uh-huh.
This level feels like it's taking forever!
Oh, it is.
I mean, I guess this is 3-4.
Yeah.
The 4 levels typically take a long time to go through.
It's basically the final, you've gotten used to the new gimmick of this level area. So for the first area, that was just, you've gotten used to PvZ in general. So let's throw the biggest stuff we can at you before we start giving you the special gimmicky headaches or the new kinds of zombies to deal with, that kind of stuff. Because there's nothing particularly special in this stage outside of maybe the divers.
Yeah, the divers. Also, we're actually getting to see the divers do their thing because we don't have the catapults now. So our snow peas and our gloom shrooms go straight over them whenever they're in the water. We have to wait for them to come up and try to eat our magnet shrooms before anything happens.
They don't even get a bite on the magic.
No, they do get a bite on them.
Yeah,
they get one bite on them.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. I like that.
It's good. Yeah, I mean, occasionally you'll need to replenish your garlic. That will be important. But, yeah, these guys, they're really not putting up much of a challenge at this point. I mean, I'll have to occasionally replace a magnet shroom down here, and I'll have to occasionally replace the garlic, but there's really nothing that they can do now.
This is the setup that usually gets me fairly quickly to 9,990 sun.
If I had some extra room, I would have put in something like a pumpkin or a tall nut, or maybe some spike weed, but, you know, this setup in general is just going to be very effective against anything. And we're going to make a lot of money off of this stage, too, because I'm pretty sure with marigolds, not only do they just straight up give you money, but they also make money drop more frequently.
That sounds about right.
Like, you know, whenever a zombie, it can randomly drop money whenever it dies.
Right.
Having marigolds out makes that more likely to happen.
I think if a zombie eats a marigold, that also is like guaranteed to drop more money or something like that.
Not sure.
It's been a while. I know there's something like that in the second game where there's a plant that's specific. Oh, I forgot about this level.
And we're gonna have to do this level next time. So.
Oh no.
I'm Mr. Game Pie.
I'm also sure.
And we'll see y'all next time.
I bid thee well.
Goodbye.
Bye.